Thank you for tuning in to episode 88 of the World Builder's Anvil. Today's topic, the rebuild.
Don't know where to start building your fantasy world? Do you need more? Does it make sense? Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination. This is the place that will help prime your mind. Now, it's time to heat up the forge, break out the mithril ingots and hammer. Welcome to the World Builder's Anvil. I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram. Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. All right, welcome back. As always, I'm your host, Jeffrey W. Ingram.
I'm your co-host, Michael Miller.
Better known as Waterworld Lover.
You know, the irony is that I don't.
You love it.
I do.
I
don't love it. I like it. There's things about that movie that I like. And it kills me that you have such an anti-anything for that movie that it's become a whole thing on this apocalyptic scenario.
You want to know something that makes it even worse?
What's that? You own it, don't you?
No.
You don't? I don't own it.
No, I would believe that. I'm not accusing you of being an owner, just a lover. You know, you have to hide that kind of stuff. I actually like Postman better.
You know, I meant to bring up the Postman in last.
We kind of joked about it, but only for a half a second.
Yeah, like I actually meant to get into it because I thought that it was interesting that we're talking about rebuilding in the last episode.
Mm-hmm. A bit the society and how
how the society comes back together. So actually, I mean, we can talk about it here too.
Yeah,
like we're not getting off the subject if I get into it, right?
Talk about rebuilding. No,
because the way the Postman goes.
Yeah.
I think that one of the most important things about a society rebuilding, especially if it's an apocalypse in a scenario where there is a lot of stuff still around. It's not like everything's been blown to dust and you're a hunter-gatherer society. But you actually have people that remember the old systems. Maybe there's still power in some locations, what have you. I think one of the most important things to get going back again is communication. And while the basis of the Postman is that he's just trying to get a free meal when he starts it, the concept of reconnecting all these people that are separated physically, huge, absolutely huge. And it was just kind of weird that like they made they built that around the story, and people started to get hope. Yeah, it was nice people got communication. Like, oh my gosh, I have family that I haven't talked to since the apocalypse. I haven't spoken to Aunt Judy.
Well, she survived.
But she lived. Yes, yeah. I've got a letter from her from the Postman. I honestly think that that's a great movie.
And here's one of the reasons why I really like the Postman. Most post-apocalyptic futures are Mad Max, which is enjoyable and fun, but it's not realistic in the sense that societies, it's like people are fighting to prevent a new society.
Like it cracks me up that there is so much of nobody wants to get along. Where I think there'd be more people that'd be like, look, we're gonna have to survive together. You know what I mean? Yeah.
A lot of it goes to why societies form. Societies form because cooperatively, we can do things that everyone can live a little bit better.
And everyone can benefit from.
And so, but there's certain rules you kind of play. So like, you don't randomly kill people. Because other people in the society...
killing people should be planned.
That's right. It's never random.
Shouldn't
it's
be random.
Only premeditated.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, we'll leave that. We'll leave that one for Mike. But
Michael.
So, essentially the idea of this episode is we didn't want to look at, we've talked a lot about different properties where things have been broken. But really, what are some things that we should consider once we've destroyed our world is how we want to rebuild it. And the first thing I think is important to talk to is, besides how many people are left, because obviously from our definition of apocalypsias, what's the plural?
That was the word.
Yeah, apocalypsias.
Nailed it.
I'm sorry, I'm joking. It's apocalypse, we all know.
Yeah, of course. It is actually apocalypses. I looked it up.
It is?
It is. It doesn't sound anywhere near as fun. I'm going with apocalypse. I want that to grow.
Yes. So we're sticking with that. And so we're going to call it apocalypse, but beyond the great reduction of people, obviously in a scenario where some have survived, because I think we also covered earlier that if
no one survived, there's no story to tell.
And if life re-evolves millions of years later, it's not really a post-apocalyptic society.
Yeah, it's just a new society. Yeah, absolutely.
Besides how many people are left, what is the condition of your world? And this goes a lot to how you chose to destroy it. It will have different effects.
I actually just thought of something that we didn't discuss before. And it might throw us a little off subject, but a little on subject too.
Okay.
We didn't discuss the possibility of a world-ending scenario where the world no longer is inhabitable, but there's still enough people that can leave.
Oh, space apocalypse.
Yeah. We didn't talk about
I'm ashamed of us.
Look at WALL-E. That's a perfect example.
Perfect example. And there are other stories like that too where...
Of course.
Where, what is the one I'm thinking
It's called Battlestar Galactica. Battlestar Galactica. You hear me tripping over?
Battlescar?
Yeah, Battlescar. Me tripling. Not only am I tripping over my words, I am tripling over my words.
You are scarred, I think.
I'm scarred. Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar
is another
Galactica.
Excellent example.
That's a huge one. There's one with Earth, and they're on Mars, I believe. Is it with Cowboy Bebop, I think? Isn't Earth?
No, there's people.
There are people.
I
thought there was.
There's also like Mars is better, but there's still plenty of people on Earth. I believe there's areas of Earth that aren't great, but
yeah, because I think there was some sort of ecological disaster on Earth.
I believe that's correct.
But once again,
but I don't want to get us too far off the subject. But that does lend itself to the rebuild.
To what we're talking about here,
because they're not rebuilding with what was. They're actually like, we need something new altogether.
And that could explain the survival of certain people too. Mm-hmm. Maybe the planet was blown up or completely made it uninhabitable. Mm-hmm. But people have the ability to escape into space, and those who can afford to do that. Mm-hmm. What's that show on CW I started watching that's okay? Like most of the shows on CW.
Like most of the shows on CW, it's okay.
It's okay. It's like the 100, and it's like
I just caught. I think that's on Netflix, and I was and I was looking at that, and I was reading the description. It sounded interesting.
It's actually good.
Did you watch?
I watched the whole first season.
Yeah, it is. It's worth watching.
Yeah.
Netflix also has another show where
it's not great.
Everyone, it's good.
It's good. Yeah.
Everyone under the age of 24 survives. So they wall off this town. Everybody that is over the age of 24 just dies from some random disease reason.
I don't like those kind of stories.
It's pretty good.
And I've seen ones that are done well, but for me, it's a grasping one that I have trouble grasping onto. I think that's more. I've seen it done well a few different times, but I just can't accept the premise.
I'm having a hard time because it's way too engineered. Like literally one of the characters has a birthday and like dies that day.
And when I have my stuff made up, fictional, fantasy, science fiction.
So the disease knows your birthday. TikTok. Exactly.
Well, it's based off of the breaking down of your DNA,
which certainly happens at the exact same rate in every single person.
Exactly.
No, that's not true.
Oh man,
you're gonna have to go back to the drawing board.
I almost thought I had a good
disease.
a good one for that. Speaking of disease and destroying the world, there's a good Android game I found during this recording sessions.
I love games about androids and robots.
It's on Android, and there's no robots. It's called Plague Inc. It's a free game. I actually paid the 99 cents for it because I enjoyed it so much. And you engineer diseases. And the trick is you're trying to destroy the entire population of the world. It's the reverse of pandemic.
Okay.
So you're the disease instead of the players. And so your job is to build the disease in such a way that you can destroy the world.
So are you like the scientist in a lab making a disease? Or
it doesn't really get into story-wise because it's a mobile game and mobile games are light and a bit weak with stuff like that. But essentially there's a world you pick, like a country you want to start the infection in, and there's benefits and drawbacks.
Canada! They're way too happy!
The problem is you start Canada, it's a richer country, they have better health care, it spreads more slowly at the beginning.
But if you get a hold of Canada,
it's gone.
It's going down.
Well,
centralized.
Greenland and Iceland have been the bane of my existence.
Because you can't get through.
You get it, it's like really...
How many people live in Greenland? 5, 6?
Under 60,000 according to the game, which must be accurate.
Yeah, it must be. It's an Android game.
Yeah, exactly. So Google knows.
Speaking of apocalyptic games, and I'm going to plug the site just because it's sitting right here. If you go to www.guardduel.com/Amazon, you can order your own copy of Zombicide, which I have sitting right next to me. I'm a big fan of Zombicide. Furthering the plug, though, anything you order through guardduel.com/Amazon, it just takes you straight to Amazon if you want to help out the show. Buy whatever your heart desires, and it won't cost you any more. It just helps out the show, so we appreciate that. But I bought myself a post-apocalyptic board game, Zombicide, so it's a zombie board game, which is crazy fun.
Excellent.
So,
and it's season 3, so does that mean there's like 2 other versions of the game?
Well, the way it works is there's what they've done is they've taken the standalone versions of the game and retroactively applied seasons to them. So if you have like I have the original Zombicide, doesn't say season 1 on it.
Okay.
But that is considered season 1. Season 2 is Prison Outbreak. Season 3 is Room Morgue. I forget what season 4 is. But there is so many peripherals for the game that you can also buy. The seasons can be purchased and played standalone. The stuff that doesn't say season 1 or 2 or whatever on it are like expansions, and they have to be added to a base game.
Were they ready, any of them?
And all of them are compatible.
Okay.
So I bought season 3 to add to my copy of season 1, so that one of these days I'm having.
Oh, you can really just play them.
So I'm going to make an apocalypse board. Like I'm going to cover my table with both board sets all together and make a massive zombie game for whoever's going to be coming over for board games that night. So we won't be rebuilding that night. It'll all be thick of the apocalypse.
And obviously a disease apocalypse, not a supernatural apocalypse.
Exactly.
Yes, very good.
Getting back to, we were talking about leaving Earth. Maybe we should, because I think that'll just get us so far off. Let's stick with on-Earth apocalypses for the sake of
where the technology isn't there to escape.
Well, not only that, but I was going to say let's stick with an apocalypse where the technology is still laying around. So it's not a dust bowl post nuclear strikes and bombs all over the place, but maybe it's a disease where half the population's been wiped out, or more than half the population. If we're going with apocalypse, we agreed that 90% or more. So
yeah. I think you could also, you still want to leave the other scenarios in there too, because technology won't completely disappear. Your ability to access it is the difficult thing.
Well, I know. I'm not saying eliminate it altogether from discussion.
But if they escape to space, they have not yet achieved that.
Right. My purpose for it is let's start the discussion in that arena, and it's going to evolve as we go.
Because we'll save the other thing for later on, because I'm sure we'll talk about space at some point. Of
course. So let's say a disease wipes out 90% of the planet. Technology is still around, but we've at least enough time has passed that the systems have shut down.
Yes. So,
like if you've ever seen, here's one we haven't talked about: The Stand.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Who's that author?
One of the best apocalypse stories ever.
Yes, and actually one of the best Stephen King things turned into
a series. Yeah.
Into anything.
Yeah. It was very. I might have it at home somewhere. But in that one, a lot of people survived, and they slowly found each other, and then they basically picked a town. I don't know. I don't remember exactly why they ended up where they did, but
there was a reason.
There was a town, and they started cleaning up and starting over. They started getting rid of all the bodies, emptying out all the buildings, and restarting. I specifically remember when they were in the power station trying to kickstart the power station so that the town could have power again. And being an electrician, some of that stuff is it's kind of scary and interesting to know that so many of our automated systems don't actually require a lot to keep going.
Yeah.
I do work a few water treatment facilities here in Connecticut, and I've seen the inner workings of some of these huge water treatment facilities where they actually service multiple towns. So you're talking about like just one big building where water is being processed, waste is being processed, and the whole building is being run by like 5 people.
Wow.
Literally.
Yeah.
And they just have to go to different computers. They have to do some manual, physical, mechanical stuff sometimes too. Like they'll have to go to a different room and change chemicals out or do a little work on a machine or what have you. But it's a massive plant supplying all the water for, 20 to 100,000 people. and it's only like 5 people running the show. I would have to think that an electrical plant, and the irony is I'm an electrician, but I don't think I've ever been in an energy plant. Yeah. I would have to think that there would be a few more people there, but probably not many more, because a lot of that stuff, like there's a lot more friction and a lot more mechanics necessary for the moving and filtering of water than energy. Yeah. You know, I mean, electricity,
it flows.
Yeah, it's
not like water.
All you need to do is make the connections. I mean, there's certainly. I don't want to get into a big debate about energy. You can have dirty power. You can have harmonics. There's all kinds of things that can be wrong with power that need to be fixed, but not in the way that you need to add more chemicals, remove chemicals, filter, remove waste, as you do with water. Yeah. So. Just putting that.
And removing the waste is huge.
It's significant. I've been in those rooms. They're not pleasant to be in. I seriously.
I believe you.
I was in a brief segue. I'll try to be quick. Okay. I was in a room switching out the lighting to an energy efficient lighting in a room where it was a semi-tractor trailer with a chute out of the ceiling that was just dumping processed waste into it. So you're just talking about. I've been in the room where the machine it's literally filtering poo out of the water. It gets baked. It goes to this machine that literally bakes it. It cooks it, dries it out, and it goes through a filtering process. And then it goes into this trailer. So it's literally a trailer filling up with dried out poo. I've been in that room. It's horrible.
So I think I'll write an apocalypse story where the only safe place in the world is one of those rooms.
One of those rooms. Look, I'd rather be outside. Well, the thing that's funny about the olfactory sense is that a lot of people don't realize is that the way your nose works in conjunction with your brain is if you're around a smell for 20 minutes straight, approximately 20, 30 minutes, if you're in it for that amount of time, your brain will eventually ignore the smell. Eventually your brain says, okay, I don't need this stimulus anymore. I don't need to acknowledge that it's
here.
There.
I'm not leaving. It must be safe.
Not necessarily that it's safe, but I don't need to pound my the forefront of incoming information. I don't need to keep sending this signal. So it doesn't bother you as much once you've been in there for 20 or 30 minutes. But here's the kick. Here's the rub, rather. As soon as you leave that environment, if only for 1 second, as soon as you get a clear breath of that smell being not present, when you go back into it, that countdown resets. So I was in that room, and then it'd be like, oh no, I have to go out to the truck for a tool or a part. And it's like, oh, I've been in here for a while. It's not so bad right now, but I got to walk out of the room. And it's really not that bad. Yeah. And then you walk out to the truck and you get a good breath of fresh air. And it's like, oh, it is a little better out here. I'll get my part or get my tool. Go back into the room. Oh my gosh! And it just hits you in the face and you can't deal with it. So it makes me wonder how bad bodies smell. So like in the stand when they're cleaning out the church and there's all the bodies.
Well, I think it depends at what point you find them.
Well, yeah, that's true. If they're dry and crusty, I imagine it's not going to be as bad.
Yeah, but as they're decaying, it would probably
really it's horrible. It's like it reminds me of 28 Days Later when he goes to the church, like where he's walking around. That was chilling when he's walking around London and there's just no one, and he goes.
That alone is chilling. You wouldn't need zombies. Just being stuck in that scenario would be chilling.
They had a similar scene toward the end of The Devil's Advocates where where Keanu Reeves is walking out onto Fifth Avenue. And I lived in New York at the time when this movie was released. He steps out onto the Fifth Avenue and you can see like 40 blocks in both directions and there's just nobody. That scene unnerved me more than anything in the whole movie. Like it literally gave me a chill. Yeah. Because you don't ever see that. Yeah. Like the closest I ever saw to that living there was on Thanksgiving Day at about 8 a.m. I was on 8th Avenue and there was nobody for about 10 blocks in both directions. I stood in the middle of the street just kind of looking up and down 8th Avenue like, wow, I can just stand here for a minute right in the middle of the road.
And then a taxi came and honked.
No. It was about, like I said, that was for about a few minutes and occasionally a cab or whatever would go by. But it was very empty because, no one had started their day yet. But getting back to rebuilding, we were talking about communication. Yeah. So communication and then like basic, power, water, those systems.
They're currently off. You're currently on world. Massive depopulation has occurred, obviously. And that's a huge one too, where you have to consider the type of apocalypse, because if you have something that's killing people like a disease, you might not be too lucky with who's left. You might not have someone
like personalities or
well, that too. That is under any scenario. Skill set.
Well, yeah. I mean, you lose 90% of your population. You might not have the surviving populace may not have the education necessary to kickstart some of the systems that you would. Well, maybe not at all. Like you might have to rebuild the wheel, so to speak.
Yes.
If you've got a whole bunch of people and nobody knows anything about electricity, the best you're going to get is collecting gasoline and getting generators going.
Or what you'll have is you'll have one electrician and you'll have someone who oversees the licenses for electricians and linemen. And so he'll allow them to connect the electricity to the pole, but he won't be able to connect poles. Yeah.
Do you want to know the irony?
Yeah.
The linemen that work for the power company, most of them don't have electrical licenses.
Oh, I thought you needed and you chose.
Nope. That is not the case.
Wow, that's actually.
I mean, they're appropriately trained to do their jobs,
okay.
But a lot of them are not licensed electricians.
Because I always thought you went through electrical training and you chose if you were going to be a lineman or a electrician, and once you chose, you were a lineman.
You were one or the other.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I mean, I could go work for the electric company if I wanted to. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who works for the electric company, and every now and then when things pop up, he's like, you should put your your resume in. He's always like, hey, there's openings. You should put your resume in. You should be a lineman.
Papers, give us your papers.
Yeah, I don't know that I want to be a lineman though. I mean, like with my job, I'm not often put in a position where I'm playing with something that can kill me. If you're a lineman, you're playing with stuff that can kill you all the time.
And if it's bad weather, you're out in it.
Yeah. That's the other thing. You're outside most of the time. Like pretty much all the time you're outside. My job doesn't... I mean, some of what I do, like what I did today working in a plant today, I was working with, and I will be while I'm at that job, working in big switchgear where I'm working with 480 volt and 200 to 600 amp, switchgear. It's
more than enough.
Well, where my hands are right in it, where I literally have to wrap, stuff around the feeder wires. I have to have my hands right up in that stuff. So, I don't like to do that all the time, but that's what my job requires.
Yeah.
But I don't have to do that a lot. I have to do it sometimes. So, after the apocalypse, I think I'd be valuable, but at the same time, I don't know how to restart a plant. I could get generators going, and I could, but I don't know that I could get a plant going. Like that's way above my knowledge base,
You think, but maybe with documentation, you would maybe be closer than...
I'd be closer than your average person, but you're still talking about a big job.
There's a learning curve. Yeah.
I don't know that... people talk about learning curve. It's like, you just try enough, you'll get there. No. There's a point at which there's not a curve. There's a point at which there's a step, and if you don't learn something, no matter how much you do, you're going to be bashing against a brick wall.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if you have a building management system, you could have in your house, you could have in
a building,
in commercial building, commercial installation, and there's definitely going to be something on a much higher level, much more sophisticated level in an electrical plant. Now, let's start with, you need to make sure let's go with water. Let's go with water generation. Let's go with, the old school idea of, a water mill. That's basically how hydro generation plants work. What you have is the water is physically spinning something. And on that spinning thing is gigantic magnets. Those magnets are rolling over other magnets and rolling over coils. That's creating a current. That creates energy.
Yeah.
So, but you need a way to then transfer that energy into the system. So let's say, for sake of argument, that either those are spinning and energy is hitting a stopping point. So you need to, have the system control in a fashion where it's putting it out into the grid. Or let's say it stopped altogether, and maybe there's some type of, maybe there is a generator that has to be started to get the spinning going, so then that it self-perpetuates. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of those systems they're complicated. Okay. Even in the water treatment facilities that I've been in, when they shut off the street power and they're running on their backup generators, the backup generator will run each one of their individual locations. Massive motor. We're talking about a motor half the size of your house.
Mm-hmm.
And it runs on diesel. So let's say they don't have any diesel, or let's say when the apocalypse happened, power goes. Well, now they need to keep the water going, so they keep the plant running on diesel till the diesel's out. Now there's no way to start it back up.
Yeah.
Not unless you refill the diesel. Does anyone have a tanker full of diesel?
Yes.
Does anyone know how to even just refill it or access it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's so many different access points to all these different things just to get something going. It might not ever be a viable possibility.
And which is important to think too, because, the thing is, I think step one, you try and do stuff like, restart your local grid, probably isolate your grid because you don't want to waste electricity out of the area you're using. Because
you figure when people died, stuff was on.
Yeah.
So with the way energy works, like if you were to backfeed the grid, let's say you've got your backup generator, and the house is not quite set up for it, so you jerry-rig it. The old school way to repower your house with a generator is you make a plug, and then it's illegal to do this. You can't do this now. I'm going to describe it vaguely so people don't try it. But you basically make a plug that you would plug into the generator, and then you would plug it into your dryer outlet. And what it would do is it would backfeed your house. And now, because it's going through your dryer outlet and that cable is smaller than the cable running to the main of the house, you wouldn't turn on everything in the house because it would pop. It would burn up the wire. The generator would blow. It wouldn't be enough. The generator wouldn't be generating enough power. Exactly. So if you were to do something like that and you shut everything in the house off except, say, maybe you wanted to run the refrigerator, or maybe you wanted to run an electric stove so you could heat up some, fresh deer that you just killed hunting. So that's how you decide to use the energy. If you don't disconnect the house from the system, you're backfeeding right up the power line. And then anything else connected to that is going to, there's energy there. And it's going to try to draw from it, which means the neighbor's house, any other house in the neighborhood, stuff might just start turning on. More likely, there's going to be too much stuff on. It'll drain and then pop the breaker built into the generator. So you probably wouldn't have power very quickly, and you wouldn't know what was going on. But that's kind of what you've been looking at. So first you'd need to isolate the house. Yeah,
you'd isolate the area, and then once you have the area isolated, and you hopefully don't, like you said, blow up stuff, what you do, because who knows, because these things aren't meant to turn off anyway. So, it's kind of like an old server. Old server goes off, and you pray when you turn it back on, because it's not really designed to do that. It's not meant to operate that way. But, so if that fails, though, the advantage you have are books that will explain, well, gee, we have food to survive now, but we're going to need food going into the future. How do we farm? Maybe figure out more basic uses of energy, like mills.
I think that's what you'd have to go with. I think people would go back to like the base, like, okay, forget all the...
But that's
forget all the toys. It would all just be, you'd be Amish. You'd be going back to an Amish lifestyle.
Yes, and you'd hopefully, with the knowledge reservoirs, be able to build the technology, if so desired, back up to a point where you can start doing basic electricity. But I think the higher level functions, I think that's something that we get wrong. I don't think you get the power plants back on, or not for significant periods of time. What happens when that tube breaks? How do you get the replacement tube to make that widget work within the factory?
Well, that's the other thing. Did you ever watch the show, was it Revolution? Yes. The thing that killed me about that show is like they go and I forget how much time passed. It was like 15 years?
It was several years, yes.
I want to say it was 15. That sounds very good to me. Because remember, the girl was little and now she's like in her mid.
Yeah, because she was born.
She was born. Yeah, she was a little girl and then she was like mid-20s, like mid to late 20s. 26, let's go with. So I want to say it was like 15 years. If you have a plant, if you have a big engine of motors and stuff sitting still in temperature changes for 15 years, one of the first things that's affected by that is the rubber. So
all your rubber is gone.
Almost all of those engines are running on, they have a big, what's the word I'm looking for?
Crankshaft.
Yes, but the rubber piece that goes in between.
Oh, the belt.
The belts. Thank you.
Yeah.
All the belts and
or chains.
There are belts in. Well, the chains would probably be fine.
Yeah.
But all of the belts, which are going to be in all of your AC units, all of your fans, almost every single motor, unless it is like just a straight drive shaft and an electric motor, almost all of those belts are shot.
Yeah.
And if they're not already like broken, they're going to be too brittle and they will break, or they're not going to last long, or they're not going to catch on the spindles unless it's like,
well, that's another risk too with the temperature change.
There's certainly exceptions to this, but again, my work experience, I've seen some of these motors where they haven't been sitting for all that long, and you look at any of the rubber pieces, they're just shot. So you know it's like, okay, well, you got to at least change the belt before this AC is going to work again, before this air handling unit's going to work again. You know, so when they left and they've got these full-blown plants and then they just go back in, everything turned on, it's all fine. Nothing's rusted, nothing's oxidized.
Yes.
Stuff would be shot.
Or just the miracle of the gears just turning again.
Yeah,
even if for whatever reason, any valves, you're probably going to have rubber valves throughout as well too.
Any gaskets.
And especially too because, you now have corrosive fuel sitting within engines not operating.
I wanted to look that up. I forget what that is. How long gasoline can sit before it's useless? It's not long. It's like 3 years, maybe. It's not a long time.
It also depends too on the ethanol content.
Of course.
I mean, so there's different types of gasoline, and so it turns bad pretty quickly. Yeah. I mean, in the scope of life.
Yeah.
But some like ethanol.
The point is,
ethanol will destroy a small engine if you don't winterize it. If you leave the fuel in like a small engine appliance over a winter.
So that's why you have to put like a lawnmower, or
So if you have a simple engine like that, you leave in ethanol fuel, which is pretty much all we have in this country at this point, unless you spend a lot of money for the non-ethanol version. If you don't put the winter stabilizing stuff, it'll wear it down using it, all of the rubber internals. But if you forget to winterize it and you forget to empty out the fuel from the run it dry, you're not even going to be able to. You might not be able to turn it back on next year.
Yeah. So forget about trying to get it going later. I think it's going to, I like that I thought of Amish. I think that's how you're going to be living. Yeah. No tractor.
And the good thing is you don't reset to nothing though, I don't think, because when you think about like cultures first forming, you're taking rocks and you might do it a little bit, but you'll get back to certain simple mechanical stuff pretty easily. Windmills, rivers powering mills.
Where would you want to go? Where would you want to rebuild? And we live in the Northeast.
Yeah.
So everything goes to hell. You have to start rebuilding. Let's say it's you and Kristen, the two of you both made it. Where do you want to
go? Probably somewhere semi away from cities.
Okay.
Somewhat isolated.
Really? You wouldn't want to try to strengthen numbers sort of thing? Like you would
no, I'm not. I definitely would want strength in numbers.
Okay. But the way you made it sound, I thought it was just me and Kristen.
Fun for the next 10 years before we're dead because we have no food.
We can do it.
No, I think you want to shift. I think successful populations will not be around current existing stuff. Your houses are going to start to crumble. You're not going to be able to get parts and stuff like that. So especially any newer homes are going to, within 40 years, be mush.
Well, how long do you expect to live?
I'm not saying I wouldn't use them temporarily, but the thing is, I'd try and get out of majorly populated areas because one, all of the dead bodies. 2, I want to be upriver of the old pollution.
Well, yeah, but you also got to figure it's only going to be a matter of time before that's not even a concern anymore.
Yes, but your lifespan has to involve that. Yeah. So the thing is, and like I said, it doesn't have to be like on the top of a mountain in New Hampshire.
But see, I want to go south. I'd want to go somewhere.
There is a strong argument for south, and I was going to say
I don't want to deal with the winter. I don't want to deal with the winter.
And you want a longer growing season.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. So you'd be able to grow stuff.
But I think down south, north of the tropics, but like southeastern United States, and it would be southeastern United States, not southwestern.
Because they're getting drier. Yeah,
they're getting drier. But even if the water goes back to what it was, it's still a much more arid area, much tougher to do farming. And the southeast is very rich soil.
I think I'd retire to Florida.
Well, it depends on where you live, but the problem is you go too far south in Florida, and you start hitting tropic kind of issues in the southern tip of Florida. It's the only part of the U.S. that has tropics.
I don't think I'd want to go that far. Maybe just Georgia.
No.
Is that too far for you?
No, not necessarily. Just I don't know.
I mean, Georgia gets a little cool too, though.
But you still want seasons, and
for the growing purpose, or
yeah, because what you're going to do is we're all idiots. We don't know how to farm. We're going to overfarm the land.
No, I'm assuming you're going to either have a book or at least one person in your party
is hopefully smart enough
that knows enough to get things started. Because you're gonna be scavenging for a while.
You need a farmer. Well, the scavenging is the easy part,
right? But that's going to have to happen until you
and
get
that will be the senior,
a solid
the
crop set up going.
But the thing is, the thing that we don't know is crop rotation. What's that plant?
The thing you don't know.
Well, maybe you know that.
No, I don't know.
But the thing is, hopefully someone's smart enough to know you don't know that. Because the thing is, hey, the wheat's growing great. Let's plant more wheat. Hey, it's warm enough all year where the yields won't be as good, but we can keep yielding all year round. Mm-hmm. You kill off the soil for wheat in a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it'll be probably hard to get fertilizer outside of naturally supplying it, which you would be an idiot not to do.
Naturally supply it or get fertilizer?
Naturally supply the fertilizer.
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit of both. Because you got to figure...
You can find fertilizer.
Well, yeah, but here's the thing I'm thinking about. Like, you figure if 90% of the people are dead, then that means 90% of the supplies that have been left are still available. So wherever you go...
Maybe.
Wherever you go...
Under the scenario of the disease, maybe.
Are you suggesting that those have been spoiled or taken?
There will be spoilage. So
in fertilizer?
Not in fertilizer.
Well, that's what I'm talking about.
And scavenged goods.
Well, of course. I'm not arguing that. What I'm talking about is, so you've got 10% of the leftover population. How many of them are going to go to the effort to try to rebuild, subsequently farm?
Most of the 10%, I think you're having 1 to 2%.
In an American scenario, very few.
Yeah.
So you got to figure that sort of stuff is going to be available. A lot of it's going to be available. Yeah. Maybe you just say, screw it. I'm going to go down to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and just hit all the Home Depots along the way. Yeah. Get as much fertilizer I can, and then there's going to be tons of equipment.
Well, I think until you get the farming going, your priority is going to be food.
Well, right, of course.
Milk, especially spoiled milk.
Who needs milk?
Milk's delicious.
Well, that's fine, but if you're not going to be pulling that out of the cow 2 weeks after the apocalypse, you're not seeing cartoned milk anymore.
Well, hopefully there'll be no cow.
You might get powdered milk, maybe condensed milk.
Maybe mad cow.
Maybe. Well, you might. Do you know how to pasteurize milk though?
I think you just warm it.
I have no idea. You might want to read a book on that
too. Yeah.
You find a cow and you're like, Shangri-La! And then you start sucking on it.
No, I think one of the things I take with me where I go to a more remote area would be books. Lots of books.
Or just make sure that you're,
and every iPhone I can find.
Quote unquote, why iPhones?
Because I'd be cool because I'd have iPhones.
In your quote unquote remote area, maybe it's just a town. Maybe it's just a town that is not super popular. That you just. I mean, look, there's going to be tons of towns where everybody's dead. You're going to be able to go to the library, and just look.
Yeah, but have you been in different libraries? All libraries aren't equal.
I know. So,
but it's not like a super high priority. But like as you're out scavenging, one of the priorities would be, okay, here are things that we need books for.
Yeah.
So you stop by the local libraries as you're hitting up the Home Depots, as you're probably going in a radius out of your town, or you're sending out long range patrols into different towns. Because the gathering, I don't think ever stops. No, not within the first generation.
But see, my thought, the basis of my question initially was, like, some of that's going to occur, but like, let's say the apocalypse has happened, the population's been wiped. So you're saying you're going to go, like, you haven't actually given me a straight answer about where in the continental U.S. you would go, except vaguely southeast.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't care so much. It probably wouldn't be super far from the ocean, but not right on it.
The ocean gives you another food source.
Well, that's why I want proximity to it, but I also don't want a storm surge.
True.
I mean, if you could find solid ground somewhere, where it's hot in a higher elevation, because you're gonna have the issue in the southeast of Well, not only tornadoes, which is less of a risk, but hurricanes.
Hurricanes, yeah. Hurricane
So
season.
you want proximity because I think you definitely want the ability, and I'm not saying hundreds of miles, but 10, 20 miles, or depending if you can find a good solid higher ground near it, like if you found the main coast somewhere in the southeast. But I'm not quite familiar enough with the geography to be able to say Rocky Head Beach in in Alabama.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I think I would definitely want to go south.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not exactly sure where I would land because I think if I was going to have to deal with the apocalypse, I'd at least want to deal with better weather than what we have in New England.
And I'd also go south for another reason.
What's that?
Military bases with military equipment. And the thing is, because you don't know, there might be some Mad Max people out there.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
So I would hoard arms. I would probably try and quickly acquire like Bradleys and stuff like that to use them in a still position.
What's a Bradley?
It's a personnel carrier for the military. M3A2 or the M2A2 would be the current models used. And essentially...
Those were scout vehicles, right?
Correct. Well, the M3A2 is a scout vehicle. The M2A2 is the infantry version, which is probably more suited for infantry. But in this position, I think you get them set up. The mechanicals of the main gun can be fired without power. But you would need ammo for it. And you don't want to just move them and put them in it for a defensive thing around your community.
Use it as a turret, so to speak.
Use the turret part of it. And you could turn it around. You get the high explosive rounds. They have a 5-meter kill radius. So it's like firing a grenade, except you can hit something at 2,000 meters.
2,000 meters?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long distance.
Yeah. I mean, hey, one individual person, 2,000 meters, probably not easy.
I was going to say, that sounds like that would be very
But
difficult.
you have a magnified scope. If you had juice, you could use that. But without juice, it would be an even harder shot.
Yeah.
But there's also coaxial machine guns. If things get within 1,000 feet or 1,000 yards, really, you could do a lot of damage.
I don't think I would go that. I don't think I would go that hard. I mean, I think that if I were in the post-apocalyptic scenario, I would not be thinking about that much. I've already got so much to worry about. I need water. I need shelter. I need food. I need to make sure that anyone else I'm with also has these things and is safe.
But guess what military posts have beyond weapons?
Food, yeah.
Food,
yeah. Absolutely.
Food, libraries.
Libraries? The military? People in the military read?
Well, it's for their families.
All right, so getting back to the list, what are the things that we want to really cover here? Like,
okay, so I think, is it safe? That's an important question.
I'm going to go with no.
Yeah.
I think that's an obvious answer.
Well, to a degree that there's total truth in that. I mean, obviously, it's harder to protect yourself from the weather.
Well,
in general, it's not as safe.
Is it really? It's not as easy to protect yourself from the temperature, but you got to figure if bad weather comes, there's a bunch of available buildings that nobody's using. Yes,
which could collapse on you because they're deteriorating.
Well, how far after the apocalypse are you suggesting?
It doesn't matter.
It does matter.
How long do you think this house would stand?
10 years.
Constant? Yeah.
10 years without any...
And that's assuming...
My question's still valid. How long after the apocalypse
it doesn't matter
because it does matter.
Here's why. You're assuming the building you're walking into was in good condition before the apocalypse. Some homes are in very bad shape now.
Then go to the neighbor's house.
Yeah, and you're going to somewhat choose...
You make it sound like that as soon as the apocalypse happens, every house that's on the planet is going to fall to pieces.
No.
Right, which means there'll be an available building, should bad weather come in, if you need to jump into it for an hour or a day or what have you.
Or until the tornado rips the house off the ground and it doesn't
matter. If there's a tornado, then you've got bigger problems. It wouldn't matter what house you're getting into. I'm talking about if there's bad rain, if there's hail, if a sudden storm comes in and you just want to take shelter for the night.
But
there's going to be buildings available.
You're wrong with the weather.
I'm not wrong.
Because here's the problem. I'm out at the edge of the fields. It's a nice sunny day, a little cool.
Is this your newly set up place?
Newly set up place.
Okay.
And you've been out there for, like, say, a year or two.
Okay.
Again,
third time I'm asking you, how long after
let's
the
say
apocalypse?
It's 5 years after.
5 years, fine.
This doesn't matter.
All the houses are fine. Keep going.
all the houses, and you're maintaining the ones that you're using.
Okay.
So it's not that they're going to fall down.
Right.
And a really bad blizzard blows in.
Okay, out of nowhere. Fine.
Yes, you're blinded. You're now freezing. The weather can change rapidly depending on where you are. People used to die from snowstorms. People used to die from really bad thunderstorms. If they were too far out, you lose your visibility. You get lost to where you are, and you can die. You don't know the storm's coming. You don't have Doppler radar anymore.
That's true. But I wouldn't worry about that.
You know, I'd have the iPhone with the rain app to not be able to warn me because I know
you wouldn't have that. No.
No, I have like 50.
I'm
iPhones.
sure you have 50 iPhones, but
and
none of them have. I would laugh every morning. You're like, roll out of bed. You're putting your watch on, and Kristen's like, "Why do you wear that every day?" Because it's mine.
I have two Apple Watches.
It's the latest thing. It's the last thing.
I know.
But my point is, the scenario you're talking about is so specific and hypothetical. It is so specific.
Yeah. Storms don't happen.
That's not what I'm talking about.
But say
you're creating a different argument. The argument started by me saying if you needed to duck into a house, you could, and you were basically saying that houses are going to fall apart.
If you buy a house,
I want to slap you. Like, of course, if you're buy a house, you're just saying, oh well. What if you're in the middle of the field? Well, then you're not buy a house. I understand in that scenario that it doesn't work, but oh my god, you're taking the crap out of me.
Good, because you're wrong.
So getting back to the nice sunny day and all of a sudden a blizzard comes in. Again, incredibly rare scenario.
No.
Yes.
You live here. But I would say it doesn't matter. If it happens
Don't get me wrong. It's happened. 4 Octobers ago.
Yes.
That exact thing occurred.
And if you don't know it's coming, there is a chance you would lose people every time that happened.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. That I'll agree with. What I don't agree with is you are implying that the houses are going to fall apart in 5 years.
Some will.
Some will.
Yes.
The ones that are already decrepit. But my point is, there's a bunch more that are not.
A sponge?
There's a sponge.
That's a convincing argument.
There's a bunch more that are not. And if you need to duck into a building because 90% of the people out there are dead, you'll be able to, should you need to, in that heightened emergency scenario.
Yes. And you might be forced into, let's say you're out scouting. You might be forced into the nearest warehouse, which is not kept up well, and it's had tons of snow not removed from the roof for years. You know, it's 3 years later, the roof could be exceptionally weakened already.
This is such a specific what if.
Yeah. But
there's billions.
The detail,
there's
the devil's in the details. It's not in the big picture.
But there's billions
Mr.
of those.
Sunny, it's the apocalypse, but it's so easy.
No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that we could spend 14 episodes just talking about those hypotheticals.
Yeah.
So why bother?
It's more of a generic, like, there are risks that you don't know that are there.
I'm going to write down a list of things that you have in your backpack, and then I'm going to tell you where you're going to be, and then I want you to tell me what's going to happen.
Can I tell you where to put it?
You can tell me where to put it. While I'm doing this,
so he's writing down, in my backpack I have a knife, 1 apple.
Well, I'll be generous. I'll say you have 1 quart
of milk,
of water.
Okay.
You don't have milk. Water. I'm going to say you have a
compass,
an empty 1 gallon milk jug.
Milk jug.
Just because you want it.
That would be true.
An
iPhone.
Sure. You should talk about something else while I'm doing this.
Okay. So now while Mike's doing his list, we're going to go on, can you retrieve the old? And we've gone to that a little bit, but I want to touch back again on this idea of, is the old world now considered evil? And it could be through knowledge. If you're close to the event, maybe it was caused by the events of society. Maybe society broke down and caused the apocalypse. Maybe it's further out a few generations, and the stories that you hear are that city's evil. The remnants of that city are evil, but it was because people died there because of disease after the apocalypse. The people who stayed there and tried to survive there because of all the corpses all died.
Okay. So, Jeff, you're scouting.
Okay.
Gasoline has all gone bad, so you are not in a vehicle. Okay. You're walking, which means you're within 5 miles of your home.
Why would I still be there?
Why would you still be there?
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm saying wherever home is now.
The apocalypse.
Yeah.
The apocalypse.
You have gotten to the new apocalypse home. You are scouting or scavenging. You are within 5 miles of home, and you are alone.
Okay.
You have a knife.
Sure.
An apple.
Yep.
Half a quart of water.
Yep.
An empty 1-gallon milk jug.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a rifle and 20 rounds.
Wait. That's not what kind of rifle? What?
Let's say a hunting rifle.
Okay. All right.
Bolt
action?
Bolt action.
Okay.
A compass and a canvas jacket. It is fall time.
I don't have any pants.
You have pants, but I'm just giving you an idea of how much layering you have.
Okay.
And you are just outside the town center,
mm-hmm.
and you turn a corner, and there's no hiding because they see and smell you. 20 wild dogs, all between the range of 40 and 60 pounds.
Okay.
And they rush you.
I pull out my jacket.
You pull out your jacket?
Or I take my jacket off.
You take it off.
Yes.
Okay.
And I use the jacket to, one, flip around and make myself look bigger, but sort of things don't want to get hit. They don't understand the incoming pain. You might be able to keep them enough to back up somewhere to where you can minimize
they're just
their
charging you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're just charging you. That's not doing a thing.
It would.
Yeah, I'm telling you it's not, and you're going to do it.
Even if they're hungry, it would.
I'm telling you it's not.
Okay, so we're creating a fake scenario.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm sorry. In the real apocalypse that we've been talking about the whole time.
Yes.
Yes.
I need this science fiction to be more realistic. Okay. So what do I do?
You realize the purpose of creating this scenario is to point out how ridiculous it is.
No, it makes perfect sense to me.
It does.
But you're making stuff up here.
I am making stuff up here.
At least
the reason I'm doing that is because we
up.
could spend days creating these scenarios.
So then why'd you just create another one when we were moving on?
You weren't.
No, I was.
Fine, keep moving.
Okay, I was talking about evil.
Evil.
Okay. So
I wasn't listening to you while I was making the list.
So the idea that's wonderful. So the conversation's really not broken down, folks.
No.
Okay. Okay. So the idea is evil, how do you perceive the old world? And like I said, it could come from reality or you're a few generations away.
Okay.
And mythology of like that city is evil, that place is evil. But it was because when it happened,
when the apocalypse
happened, a lot of people would stay around the areas they're familiar with. And
mm-hmm.
then the disease from all of the decaying corpses would kill a bunch more people.
Yeah, because that's the thing. The apocalypse might kill a lot of people, but there's a lot of simple, very basic stuff. Humans are fragile. We're a fragile thing these days. It doesn't take much. An infection, the flu. The flu can kill you. And I've gotten bronchitis, I don't know how many times.
Mm-hmm.
In a post-apocalyptic world,
that would be much more dangerous.
When antibiotics are no longer an option, that could kill me.
And the worst thing, too, is medicine would be hoarded.
Oh, yeah.
But the question is, do you have anyone who knows when it goes bad?
Well, yeah. Well, and antibiotics
so
don't last long.
Yeah, and so you can have two waves of it where first, okay, we're getting sick, we need medicine, so we go get medicine, and we lose some people there. And then on the back end, and this I'm making up a year because I don't know, let's say 5 years later, all the medicine's bad, but the next flu comes through and we're like popping pills and we lose a wave of people to the flu and to the medicine.
Right, yeah. But like the big thing I think would just simply be all the basic sickness stuff that's what people don't realize, without medical attention, the most basic stuff, not that it will kill you, but it will cause you to eventually die.
Yeah.
Let's say you're getting back to the scavenging scenario that I just mentioned.
Yeah, I'm probably going to die.
Let's say forget the wolves. Let's say there's not a pack. Let's say you're being nice and careful. You've got yourself a good pair of boots. You have all this equipment, not a lot, not a heavy load.
And the compass would definitely be there.
And you're just walking around. You step off a curve or you step on something you think is solid, and I wasn't even going to go that far. I was just going to say you twist it real bad. Yeah. That could kill you. Not because because the twisted ankle will kill you, but because now your movement's hindered. You might not be able to get to where you need to be, whether that be shelter or to the food or whatever supply that you need, and you might eventually die just because of that.
Yeah.
You get a cut on your arm. If you don't, if it's deep, deep enough, and you don't treat it and clean it the right way, that infection can kill you.
Yeah.
So you got all these basic things where that's going to wipe out a ton of people.
I think one of the things we have come to, though, is there's going to be a series of things, because we're assuming people and societies will start to rebuild at some point. But it's going to be a lot more complicated than people think. And there's going to be a series of bad events that kind of strike one after another. And like you said, it'll be simple stuff that people just don't think. A cold, how bad could it be? Well, yeah, you just lost the old person, the smart guy who was actually working on starting up the power plant again.
Yeah. You're the one engineer you had in the crew.
And now all the structure stuff that you have to do, you don't have someone smart enough to know if what you're doing is structurally safe. So maybe you have some house collapses, or the next hurricane comes and the rebuild expansion to your house collapses because it can't withstand the winds because no one knows,
See, I don't know that I would, if it were me, I don't know that I would even bother with that type of thing unless it was absolutely necessary. And by that type of thing, I'm talking about doing an addition to a house. There'd be enough available buildings that if let's say a big storm swept in and really beat up on a couple of them, it would just be like, all right, gather what you can out of that house. Let's get what we can and still usable and just move it into the neighbor's house down the road.
But once again, that's you in the scenario in your head, but it depends on what's going on. Maybe it's very dangerous. So you're trying to keep all the people in an area that's more securable. And so the walls are securable. You don't want to have to go between houses if the zombie horde comes through.
I mean, even just like Billy and Jenny were out in the field collecting strawberries, and one of them got bit by a rabbit or whatever. Oh, okay. Well, Billy's going to die now because we have nothing to treat that.
Or you're eating wild animals and you get a parasite.
You don't cook it enough. Yeah. You know what I learned on one of the survival shows I watched recently? I didn't realize this, but if you get a fish with a tapeworm in it, you can cook it long enough that it is still safe to eat. I didn't know that. I thought that if you had something like that...
But I think we're burning our food. Done.
Everything would be well done at that point. There would be no
Could I get a rare steak for my bird?
No. If you want to die, you can. But I would... Everything's going to be cut thin and grilled hard.
That's right. Really hard. Here's your brick.
Yeah, it's going to be... Why do we always eat jerky? Because it won't kill you.
Why does he bring the MREs home? They're horrible. Yes, and they're safe.
Yeah.
I don't know what the shelf life of those are either, but it's much long.
Yeah, I want to say they're I want to say it's over 5 years.
Oh, I think so.
I think it's more like 10.
I think if you get a C ration today, and that's like the World War II style of MREs, I think parts of it would actually still be good as long as the air did not.
Yeah, as long as they weren't exposed to air, of course that alone is going to...
That will destroy everything. It doesn't matter how.
Yeah. Canned goods. I think canned goods will last longer than the dates that are on them.
Yes, I think that's the super safe date to get rid of them.
Do you know how to open a can without a can opener?
Anything where you can plug a hole in the thing and start taking it off. I mean, there's tons of ways to open a can.
You take the can and rub it on, let's say, a driveway or a piece of like a cinder box.
So this is more of like a hasty method is what you're saying.
No, this is like a great method to open a can if you don't have a can opener and you're in the post-apocalyptic world, because otherwise you'd probably have a can opener.
Because I couldn't find one anymore.
I'm sure you could find one. Oh, no. Everything has collapsed. According to my friend Jeff, nothing works.
Never said that.
Except the can. You found the can. So you've got a can of condensed milk because it's the closest thing to milk that you can find. Just rub the top of the can flat. You put it like flatly on something, just like rest it on the concrete, and then just rub the can back and forth
until the metal rim
is weak enough, and then you flip it over and just squeeze it. You can pop the top right off.
Because you're removing the seal.
You're removing the seal. Okay. Yeah, I watched a great thing on
that. It's kind of the mason jar, but just instead of being able to unflip it, you have to remove the more permanent seal.
Did you know they created the ability, the technology to can foods like... I don't remember the time.
A really long time.
Long time before they were able to come up with a way to open the can without ruining the food.
Oh, really?
We came up with a way, the human beings came up with a way to can food long before we had the ability to safely, without contaminating the food inside, open it.
Okay.
So the technology was available, but it wasn't utilized for a long time.
In the time travel episode... What you take back in time
is a can opener.
Yeah. Obviously mechanical.
Well, but only if you're going to get right into that time.
That's when you don't plan it correctly though, because what happens is you plan it wrong and you bring like the one you plug into the wall.
Right. Oh no,
it works! I swear.
you travel back in time, thus changing the time stream, and Tesla was actually the one to succeed, and everything's DC instead of AC.
That's cool though.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
Should I add can opener to your pack?
Trust me,
you would have
as a soldier.
You would have yes. What's that called? That tool.
It's the C ration version one. I forget what it's called.
The little tool.
Yes,
you know
I know what you're talking about. You flip it open.
I don't have
and
one.
You can twist it.
It's astounding that I don't. I have so much cool survival gear.
Yeah.
I don't have one of those.
Yeah, that's an important one.
I know. I would.
But like I said, a screwdriver. I mean, really. I mean, the idea of that it's a Zippo blade kind of that is attached to something, and you're just using it. But it's more durable,
and you have more time on your hands.
Yes,
so you'd be.
It might take 15 minutes to open a can,
but it would be.
But yeah,
it would be fine. So the world or something might be evil. Yeah. At this point,
so or you might think there's evil, but it could be a false. So it's like, let's say, because disease makes, like say New York City is evil because everyone who stayed there died.
We don't go there.
So no one goes there. But the adventurous person who decides to go back in there 30 years, let's say a generation later, he gets to reap the rewards because, the bodies have decomposed enough to where it's safer. Yeah. Now, the problem at that point might be some structural integrity on certain buildings.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. After 30 years of complete...
Because no one would be there because they thought it was evil.
Yeah.
So you fall into
Or are there people still there? Are there mini societies?
Yeah, but I think we go back to communication. I think people get there quickly. It's like if there's a community over there, you want to come up with a way that is friendly to pass messages back and forth. A really long string
with a can that you'd open on the concrete. Don't you think though, if it was generally agreed upon by the surviving societies outside of, we'll use New York as the example, outside of New York, everyone had an idea that, because it's 30 years. 30 years has passed.
It's a long time.
Everyone...
But there are still survivors.
I'm going to use air quotes. Everyone knows we don't go there. Like that's... No one goes there. No one comes back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So... wouldn't you think that they would not be aware of people that might be living there? Because people could be living there. I mean, you could totally still live there. You could fish.
Yes.
You could farm in Central Park.
Yeah, if you could survive the disease. But in theory, you're right, there could be. And so you might have an isolated population.
And actually, if you were living, let's say for sake of argument, you had some urban farmers that let's say you got like some crunchy hippie kids who decide to urban farm. Like they just take over Central Park and they totally... urban farm Central.
They rename it organic land.
Right. Central Park is literally central. If you were in the park, you would not be able to see anything outside the city, and anybody outside the city that wasn't flying wouldn't be able to see you. Yeah. So you could live in an isolated society right inside Central Park.
If the outside thought it was dangerous,
they would never go in there. I mean, you could create a very large fire.
And Central Park would be, but I mean, it's buried in the city. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, you could create a very large fire within the park that wouldn't bother the city and that you could use for warmth and for cooking, that the smoke from it would never be seen because it's so internal.
Yeah. No, I think that's an interesting thought is you're going to have those nuggets, and that's, just like that.
I think that makes for a good post-apocalyptic story. Yeah. Just that miniature society living in Central Park.
Mm-hmm. Because one for them, they do know of the disease that would kill people, so they might even be afraid to go back out.
I mean, think about all the... 30... Okay, if we're talking 30 years...
But they'd have to have plenty of supplies to be
That's what I was about to say. I was just going to say
they would probably pierce out in 30 years, and
they would have to,
and there'd be a reconnect. Oh, well, so we make it 15 years after.
But if we're talking a small, I'm trying to think of the how many people Central Park could support, and 30 years would really only be one generation later. Like, and maybe,
and you might have you would assume there'd still be at least some people who survived from the old world.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, we're not talking about a
You're
rebuild.
really doubtful.
Yeah, we're not talking about a rebuild.
Well, it would still be rebuilt because the evidence is still all around you. But I find it doubtful that it would survive.
Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe it's both ways. You've got everybody outside the city going, we don't go into the island. No one goes there.
Yeah.
Because think about how it would stand out across the landscape, the skyline of New York City. Like, we don't go to New York anymore. Well, what's New York? It's that place with all the big buildings. What are buildings? Shut up, you new kid. Those are buildings. That place. Nobody goes there because it's evil. Now, all the people living in Central Park, well, we don't leave the island because it's evil out the island.
Yeah, and I would assume if they survived, they would have figured out, okay, let's start going block by block and enough time later to be able to make decisions on, okay, that bodega is fine. So,
like they'd slowly
they'd be cleaning it out.
Circle,
yeah,
but maybe not. Maybe they're the type of people that just bury their heads in the sand. They're like, we know it's safe here, so we don't leave our borders.
First winter. How do you survive the first winter?
Well, that's what I'm saying. There would have to be the big urban farming aspect to it. Oh, and there's a small.
So this was the apocalypse that happened right at the end of the previous winter, so you had enough time to get a crop planted.
We're still speaking hypothetically. Okay, if you're gonna talk that way,
they would have unrealistic fiction.
Hey, look, I'm putting you back. Look over here.
I'll take your compass away.
I'm putting you back in the backpack. Well, yeah, of course. All right. If you want to nitpick it, then. Well, okay, let's say it's...
But I think you could hit a relatively realistic...
Let's say it is exactly as I'm talking.
But they all have Monsanto seeds.
Wait. Monsanto seeds?
Because the hippie crunch people would want the Monsanto seeds because they're evil.
Oh, where there's it's GMO or...
Yeah,
okay, all right.
So they'd all die off.
So let's... Crunchies. So let's say, again... Oh, man, this is ugly, though. I'm thinking about it. If we're talking... Manhattan, and we're talking 90%. That leaves how many? 900,000 people still alive.
But remember, that's just from the apocalypse.
I know. Yeah. So we're chipping away at the population.
So let's say we're down to 900,000.
Let's say we're down to 900,000 people. Okay, that's how many people on Manhattan Island survived. How many left, and how many died quickly thereafter? Half? Would you say that's fair?
No, I think more than that.
You think more than half? So you think we're down to, say, what, 100,000?
No, I think you're down well below that.
Well below that.
Because what would happen is you would have a lot of people who would stay like in their block or whatever like that.
But they couldn't stay long. Lack of power, lack of water, lack of food.
But it's all they know because they don't know how to farm. They're afraid to leave.
Yeah, but
they're just
scavenging alone would get them off that block.
Well, but they're centralized on that block because there's shelter there that they understand. They know.
So what I want you to do is pick a number. How many people do you think would still be on the island 2 years later? Because that's a long time. Okay. So how many would still people be there? And how many of those people would subsequently be able to band together and create a farm in Central Park?
I think you probably have 1% of the 900,000 who are still there in Central Park.
Okay, so 9,000 people.
Yes.
9,000. Which is still a lot. That's still a lot.
You would have food issues. I don't think Central Park is big enough to feed that.
Yeah. Well, because what I was thinking is, would they have enough time to... It comes down to a question of time and labor, because this is what they would have to do. They'd have to be working all the time to create a farmable area that would be able to create enough food to sustain their population, while at the same time having people scavenge for food still within the city limits to survive on until the crop can be harvested. And I don't think they could do it with 9,000. I think they could do it maybe a few hundred.
Yeah, it would have to be a tiny population. It would
have to be very tiny. I mean, again, going back to like the cultural episodes, I mean, you're talking about like a small tribe at that point.
Yes. I think that's the realistic number is a couple hundred. I think 9,000 try, but I think they keep losing people.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, because you're afraid of the disease, if you're going to go out and now you have to go 5 blocks to get food, I mean, you're going to just go over the bridge.
I think at that point you're going to have
and still avoid Lincoln Tunnel.
Oh, yeah. That would be scary.
That would be really deadly for a long time.
Well, I mean, take a look. I mean, again, I'm going right back to 28 days later when they went through the tunnel. I mean, that was...
Yeah.
Or actually, didn't they go through the Lincoln Tunnel in the stand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, and even then, they made it soft. They were nice with the Lincoln Tunnel.
How so? I don't remember. Didn't they just walk? Was it just bodies?
They just walked through.
But it wasn't just...
Yeah.
It was just filled with bodies. Right?
Yeah.
Cars and bodies.
Yeah, but, like the disease would be laboring down there. It would be growing into the fungus that was growing on the walls. Yeah. It would be a very, and I'm making shit up because I really don't know that's true. But
well, I mean,
to me, it's plausible.
If you've got an area that
I would be very
dark, it's dark and it's damp.
Mm-hmm.
You've got nothing going through to, well, the tunnels, especially like the Lincoln Tunnel. Mm-hmm. It's not like that's the only air that's moving in there. There's massive air handling units that are pushing air that are no longer working.
Yeah.
So the air would just get stagnant fast.
It would get really stagnant, and the bodies would take a lot longer to break down.
Mm-hmm. And I think you're right about fungus. I think that there are a lot of areas within the city that would be dangerous just to breathe in.
Yeah.
At that point, just stagnant air.
Where Dublin Central Park is your safest place, I think. There.
Oh, yeah. But you also got to figure there's a lot of things that are pre-apocalypse that are creating bad air and bad stink that would no longer be doing that. Yeah.
Like obviously you don't need the exhaust to be pumped out of Lincoln Tunnel anymore.
Exactly.
But the problem is you're not taking all the bad decaying air out of it. And I don't know how deadly decaying air is, but it would have to be, if you could smell decaying air, there would have to be some kind of living thing or a decomposing thing there, which would make disease more likely.
If we're talking 30 years later, I would have to think that it wouldn't be horrific to go through there.
But once again, too, that also falls into what kind of apocalypse? Because
I think
if it was a rapid death, it would be full of bodies, of dead people. But if it was a disease, people might be afraid to travel before then. Mm-hmm. It could be completely empty.
Maybe I want to believe whether it's a fast.
You want to believe it's full of bodies.
Not that I want to believe that the most traveled paths will be clogged, whether or not totally clogged or just clogged at a certain point.
I think it's the pace of the apocalypse event, though. If it's people are like you're losing 1 million people a second.
Well, yes, of course. Yeah.
I think you're right, but I think if it's like, let's say the event takes...
Pandemic, the movie Pandemic.
Let's say it takes a whole year to wipe out the world. I think by the time you get to the end for everyone, it's not so bad.
Yeah, probably. And I could agree with that. So you want to believe in a possibility that many of the pathways are available to you.
And like I said, once again, it's just on the apocalypse.
Roads are clear.
Yeah.
We've been going for an hour and 10 minutes, and we haven't even covered half of our list.
Actually, no, we have, but the way we've been covering it,
a lot.
But we've been going back and forth, and we've been coming into, what's the basic economy?
Well, and we talked about
can openers, compasses, canned food,
usable
fertilizer
stuff,
And then, once you get abundance and you start having excess crops, you start looking for ways of, how can we trade beyond that? How about you stay here, Mr. Engineer? You were smart enough to read those books and figure out how to do that. We're going to bring you food, but we want you to start doing things better.
When you're sitting there talking about the engineer, you stay here. It reminded me of Waterworld in the with the old man in the dinghy in the bottom of the tanker.
What happened to him?
He died horribly. Yeah, it was awful. But it was very funny because he was like, "Oh, thank God!" When they dropped. I won't say it. I don't want to spoil the end of Waterworld if somebody wants to go watch it.
They all die.
That's how Game of Thrones goes.
Oh, you spoiled that.
I did not. You always say that. Don't watch Game of Thrones. Everybody dies. So, what about, you have up there education. I think that's a really good point to at least cover a couple of minutes on it. You're talking about gathering books and whatever, but if we're talking 30 years later,
I think you have schools again.
I don't think so. I don't think
not like in the way we have them now.
I think it would be more important to be teaching them, like, let's say, getting back to the scenario where you have, let's say 9,000. Let's say you have a small town.
But you're out somewhere.
Small town. Wherever you are.
Jericho, we'll call it.
Yeah, wherever you've created your small, sustainable society, you've got 9,000 people, which means you have a next generation. You potentially are regrowing a society. With that many people, you can do it. So let's say, for sake of argument, your next generation is, let's be conservative and say 2,500 people.
Yeah.
While you could have, actually at that point you probably would have a small education system.
And I think it's going to be more focused.
Be a lot of trade teaching,
like
farming.
And I think it's going to go more traditional, like Western. Like your dad's the engineer. you're going to stay with your dad and learn what he's doing.
That's what I'm saying, like trait teaching. You know, father son.
Yeah, it's going to go back to an apprenticeship model, which you figure even at the beginning of like the U.S., if you were a lawyer, you went as a clerk into a law office, and if you showed the aptitude and you learned enough, you became a lawyer. You know, you didn't need college to do that. You know, there were, you know, like a lot less laws back then, but you know, I'm assuming you're probably going to throw out the current legal system and go to what you consider the basics anyway.
You know what? There was a great episode of the Justice League where they were on...
Wait, which version of the Justice League? We're not talking about Super Friends.
Not Super Friends, the Justice League. And they were on some planet, and I believe the Flash volunteered to be the lawyer for the Green Lantern. Yes, for Jon Stewart. He was going to be his lawyer. And in this legal system, the lawyer suffered the same punishment as the accused.
Okay.
How great would that be in our legal system? How great would it be?
I'm actually principally opposed to that. You know why?
Fewer lawyers.
I get that, and we do have too many lawyers.
We have way too many lawyers.
I'm very big in the idea that I'd rather err on the side of not punishing guilty people. Where we're at in the world now, I think if we go to a time where life's more of a struggle, you can't do that.
Yeah, you can't, because you need the people alive.
You need the people alive. But even today, though, I think you're more likely to kill them back then if they're at risk to kill more people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or at least exile, at the very least.
Yeah,
exile.
We're not sure, but we're going to kick you out instead of, take you to the block.
Now, in this 9,000 population Jericho, do we have a wall? Like, what happens when a band of roving marauders come in? We would have to have a militia.
There's definitely a militia. There are definitely people. And they're probably the same people who scout. Not all of them at the same time, but, you probably have the same core who are the training on how to scout.
Because let's say
bring back goods.
Let's say we kick you out with your backpack because you were bad and we don't trust you're not going to murder half the people in town. So we say, okay, we're not sure that you killed your neighbor. We think you did. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen Bob in a while, and we don't want you to kill and eat anyone else, even though you said you haven't done it.
But you threatened Bob.
Here's your backpack. Mm-hmm. Have a nice day. Like, what kind of precautions do we take in that you might just go out, find another group, and say, I'm going back to Jericho. Who's coming with me?
Well, I think that's a fair point, because it's more of like, what do you think the risk is? Because there's the evil town 70 miles away, and you're fighting over well water.
You're both equidistant from the river.
He's probably not walking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think that might actually impact the severity of your legal system too.
If I'm the town mayor, if I'm the governor.
Oh, God. Right now I'm saying don't vote for Mike for the town mayor.
Vote Michael for town mayor.
You're like, yes, not Mike, but Michael.
If it were me, I'd be like, send him out, give him the backpack. God be with you, Jeffrey. 2 hours later, I'd send a couple scouts to kill you.
That's right. I am a fair, honest, just ruler.
Everyone's been safe, except those who have broken the laws, and they've been safe beyond the wall. God bless them.
Frank, Kevin. Come to my office.
Kill him.
It's the Operation Mindcrime. You know what to do.
We like Jeffrey. He didn't eat Bob. I saw Bob the other day. Doesn't matter. Judgment's been passed.
I'm pretty sure.
I never liked him.
Yeah. Oh, I'm pretty sure. Bob, Frank, come to the office.
What? Didn't you guys think he ate me? Look, a ruling's been passed. I can't change these things. It would tear apart our entire justice system.
It's the opposite of the old Monty Python skit. But I'm not dead yet. But you will be in a minute. All right. So,
I don't know. Is there anything else that we really want to... We're about to close down our Apocalypse series.
Yeah, it's like the end.
I'm kind of sad.
The end feels here.
I feel like this is our little apocalypse. I'm very sad about it. Like, I could do this. I could do two, 5,
well, like you said,
episodes.
We could literally probably take the scenario you wrote down there and do an episode on a scenario.
We're going to.
Yes.
Here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
This won't be soon, though.
Yeah.
This will be like when we're feeling like we have topics.
We're
like we're feeling rambunctious. We don't want to do the topic that we have chosen.
Or we don't have an extra
topic.
Or
we don't have an extra topic.
I mean, not that whatever. We don't have that problem.
Right.
We don't. No.
Here's what we do. We come up with a small apocalypse scenario for each other.
Yeah.
Okay. So you write up my scenario, what I have, what I don't.
Yeah.
And then we play it out. And then I do one for you.
Excellent.
I think that could be really fun.
I think that would be a lot of fun. Excellent.
So, build a great world, blow the world up, but do it with a plan.
Yes. And
if you don't have a plan, at least start sketching it out so that it looks like something that makes sense.
And the thing is, too, is you have to realize that the closer people are to the land, the more agrarian a society is, the less of a problem these things are. You know, if 90% of the world gets wiped out, you know, basically 500 years ago, it would actually probably greatly benefit the people who survive.
Yeah, because now there's less of a drain on the society that's left.
That's right. And there's a lot of land. Mm-hmm. So there's less conflict in the world.
Oh, people, good. John's farmland is now available. I'm just going over there.
Yes, and he has the best land. And you know who has the best land?
Jeff, get the cow.
And 80% of your population knows how to farm.
Yep.
And you're probably...
80? You think 80? 500 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
80%.
80%. I think up until probably about 1900, you had probably well over 70% of the U.S. population who were, if they were not directly farmers, they were doing tasks to support farmers directly.
Okay. I could, yeah,
that's why it's
years. Yeah.
That's why it's an agrarian society, because the whole focus is on farming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, you know, it's like you might be Frank, the guy who goes in and butchers the meat for
the farmers, yeah. The pig farmer.
Well, the one who has a lot of pigs, because the smaller farms have a few pigs do it themselves.
Never anger a pig farmer.
But they have the best bacon.
Which is why you never anger a pig farmer. They can also make your body disappear because pigs will eat people.
Yeah, I know. Or dogs if you're in certain countries and you've annoyed the deer leader.
Yeah, but pigs will eat a person to nothing.
Yeah, I know. Bones and all?
Bones and
how do they break up the bones?
Well,
you'd have to make it small enough.
If you're kind to your pigs, you would make the bones small enough. But yes, pigs will eat bones.
They'll keep gnawing at the bones until they're gone.
They will eat everything. So you always want to be kind to pig farmers.
Good to know. And if you're in a post-apocalyptic world, and Frank, we'll call him Bob, the pig farmer survives, he's probably in charge.
Oh yeah, I mean, especially if he's got a big population of pigs, that's going to feed a lot of people.
Yeah, everyone will like him.
People die from pig farmers die almost every year. So we lose a couple pig farmers because they are pigs are so large. People don't realize how big the population.
You can get 4 or 5 feet tall on a hog.
They can get 6, 7, 800 pounds.
Yeah,
that's a lot of animal. That's a whole lot of animal. So, there was a guy, I think it was...
I'm sure cattle farmers get killed as well, yeah. I think anytime you work with large
cows are kind of like dogs, though. They're pretty nice. Pigs, they don't care.
Yeah.
And they're more skittish. So there was...
Also, more likely you get trampled is what you're saying.
Exactly. And they won't care as much. There was a farmer out in the Northwest... almost Oregon or Washington, somewhere over there. This was only a year or two ago. He was an older guy, he was in his 80s, and he was just going out to either put something in the trough or whatever, and they presume that a pig just moving just bumped him over.
Yeah,
but he was so old that look, I'm not old, but if a 600-pound animal hit me the wrong way. That would hurt.
The foot comes down on your skull.
Exactly. They're rushing to the trough and they bump you over, and that's it. They trample you. Now you got a punctured lung. It's only a matter of time before you die. And then they ate him.
I think the other scenario here is if you have a couple people who are being determined to be the head farmers, you choose the chicken farm.
Oh yeah, I'll take the chicken farm. Chickens are gross though. I've been on chicken farms. They're such dirty animals. They're filthy. It stinks. I'll take the pig farm.
Okay, well, I'll have the chicken farm.
But I will supervise my pig farm workers. I'll stand back and tell them what to do.
Don't get trampled.
Bring me bacon.
Need a new farmer.
Anyway, look how this is such a fun subject. We just keep getting segued.
That's right.
What do you want to say in closing about the apocalypse and writing or building for an apocalypse?
The thing is to realize is there's probably never been great fiction done on this because it's hard to really know all of the consequences without knowing everything. And world builders are pretty good at knowing a little bit about a lot. The thing is, do a little exploration, know your technology level, realize the more advanced the technology is, if they lose access to it because of the apocalypse, it's gonna be tougher for them to survive than the further you go back. So really the key is understand where your population was before and what the knowledge is of the people who survive, and understand that surviving that initial really bad event is the beginning of a process which will probably take at least 30 years to where you have more stable populations again, even with the ability, unless you can somehow turn the switches back on.
And for me, if it's going to be a story, if you're building for a novel, while I definitely get joy out of the minutia, I think it is more engaging to cover the emotional minutia, not necessarily the scientific minutia.
Yeah.
Like some people love it. Some people...
That depends on your target.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Getting back to...
knowing your avatar.
Well, and knowing yourself, like getting back to your architect, your gunslinger, and your gardener. I just find that for me, a post-apocalyptic story, I will give a lot of leeway on the science and the tech if it's engaging on an emotional level.
And I have to agree with you there too, because I'm usually kind of lenient with that kind of stuff anyway, but I love Mad Max. And I think it's horribly unrealistic in almost every aspect. And I will watch it probably after we're done with this episode now.
Well, the funny thing is that you're talking about Mad Max, and I pointed out earlier when I'm physically pointing at my zombie game that's sitting here. I made another order, and my wife needed a book, and I just had my birthday, so I had multiple Amazon cards that I really didn't have anything that I needed to get from Amazon, but they were kind of burning a hole in my pocket. And I feel that if you get a gift card
bad luck.
For a well, no, I feel if you get it for a birthday,
it should be fun.
I think that it should be spent on something fun.
If you can afford it.
Even if you might need a little something practical. I mean, if you're really in need of a practical thing.
It depends on what you mean by need.
Yeah, exactly. If you're really in need of a practical thing, then I'll go with the practical thing. But I hate to spend a present thing on a practical thing. If it's a present and it's for my birthday, it should be spent on something fun. So my wife needed a book for I think for work or whatever. She's like, "Oh, I need you to get this book. I need to read chapter 1 by like the 25th."
Yeah.
So I said, "Okay, great. I'll put the order in tonight." And I said, "I'll use those gift cards." So the book was only like $10. So I had like another $60 to spend. One of the things I purchased was the Mad Max trilogy on Blu-ray.
Nice.
Now, of course, they haven't arrived yet because I just put the order in last night, but I will definitely be doing a Mad Max night sometime soon. I was going to get number 4, but it's not available until September 1st. Yeah. So I will be getting Fury
Road. I think you have to, even though it's definitely the same world, new story, obviously.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's great, though. Like, have you seen the 4th one yet?
I've not seen the 4th one.
If you like the old ones.
And I
you
will.
Love the old ones.
And when I see it freaking on Netflix, I will watch.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. So World Builder's task for the day: how to rebuild your apocalyptic world. And I mean, this whole show we've been talking. I know we said.
Actually, I need to step you back for 1 second.
Go ahead.
We're going to do a rating for this episode because we're talking about an actual world building topic.
Shouldn't we put the ratings at the beginning?
We should, but we keep forgetting.
We haven't done a rating in quite a few episodes.
But the thing, what have we been talking about? It's not really been a world building type of thing. But this was more about how to do it for your world.
Yeah.
The last two especially were really about
cultural and a lot of Gardul heavy.
Well, it was Gardul heavy before that, and then the last couple episodes we're talking about Mad Max and all these other things. But whenever we like to talk about their world, I like to get back to a rating. And for this one, it is impossible to very easy. Very easy for what you said is people will give you a lot of leeway if the story's good. The thing that's impossible is you really can't know. I mean, there's really no way to know exactly how it's going to roll out. So the thing is, don't get super caught up on trying to make it perfectly plausible because you can't do that. And if your mind is that sick, please let me know on Twitter who you are.
Because we want to read your book.
Yes.
So, the World Builder task for today. I wrote down how to rebuild your apocalyptic world. Apocalypse world is actually
that's right.
Your apocalypse world. Basically, think about how to rebuild your apocalyptic world, which this whole conversation has been about. So you might not have a whole lot to think about. We covered it all of it, every bit.
But how to do it for their scenario?
No, we covered everything.
No, we didn't.
All scenarios. Jeff the backpack. It's on the board. I wrote it down.
But you forgot to have a ripped backpack
I forgot
scenario.
nothing.
Ripped backpack scenario that I fill out and I didn't realize.
I didn't write it on the board because I wanted to surprise you with that. I have a ripped backpack scenario in my pocket.
Okay.
You want to cover the real world
Yeah,
task?
sure. The real world task for today is, and this is a favorite. I think it's the first time I've done it since Mike has been on the show.
Michael.
Whoever. Surprise your loved one with a note. And I do this one, I don't know, once a month. I'm not sure how often I do it, but I like to do it once in a while. It's very important. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't have to be complex. It should be a surprise to them. Put it in their lunch pail if they go to work, and hopefully they won't accidentally destroy it before they can read it. Put it on their keyboard or their computer in the house.
Yeah, stick it where you know they're going to find it. I love this one, and I love that you repeat this one.
Yeah.
I actually added to it. I wrote surprise love. So like, if you're not going to do a note, if you want, I like doing little things where it's like you set something up. So it's not necessarily a note, but it's definitely something that the person sees and they get I love you out of it. Like let's say, like actually Sarah said to me earlier today, Sarah's my wife. She has been doing the dishes this week. Like, I don't think I've touched the dishes once. So she's like, when you come home, would you please do the dishes? So like if I had beat her home, it'd be great if I just did all the dishes just so she didn't have to.
Yeah.
Or like clean the kitty later.
Or if you hit it before she asks. Because
well,
it's been a while.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is the perfect time, but let's be honest, in the real world, it's not always perfect.
Well, the thing is, it's like with the way our work schedules are, it's honestly better if she does them. I don't mind doing them.
Yeah.
But with the way our work schedules are, it's easier.
So she usually does do them, but every once in a while she needs it.
No, we kind of take it 50-50. There's some weeks where I'll do them all week, and there's other weeks where she will. I mean,
it's the way life goes.
We're pretty good about it, yeah. But this week she's definitely done them more than me. I think I may not have done any at all this week. Yeah. So do something for your loved one. Do it as a surprise. I love the note. I love sticking on a love note or have a random card. You know what I did for my wife? I have a stack of Hallmark cards. I had gone to the store and I literally bought close to 10 cards that are like, I love you, I'm thinking about you. And every now and then I'll do one out and stick it. Well, my wife goes through my stuff and she found them.
What a brag.
She found them and she's just like, well, she's like, who were these for? I'm like, well, they were for you.
To be honest, so the reason why I go back to the notes one a lot is because beyond that, I can't think beyond my own perversions. So I usually just get slapped whenever I try and, have surprise my wife with love. So it's safer for me just to have one in the bucket that is, I know I won't get in trouble for.
Do you mean like a note you'll write or a card?
Well, I have to be careful with the notes I write too, because I'll sometimes get accused of being a pervert then as well. But yeah.
But she married you. She knows what she got herself into.
Oh, she loves it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for sticking out the apocalypse with us.
Yes. You've reached the end, and we appreciate it. Remember to hit us up anytime on Twitter, Facebook, and to show up for our next episode.
Yeah, what time is it, Jeff?
It is time for the tease. And the tease is episode 8, because we would never forget to do this. Episode 89, Magic, What Helps, What Hurts. And as always, make sure to go to gardul.com. That's GARDUL.com for the show notes. It'll be under podcasting, World Builders Anvil. That's a great place to get all of the information from the episode that you've just listened to and to see all the resources that we've talked about in this episode. Thanks for joining us this episode of the World Builders Anvil. Please be sure to rate and review us in iTunes, and please help get the word out to your friends about our show. And join me Jeffrey W. Ingram at Garduel.com to see the progress of my world and learn why I made the choices I did. And please contact me and let me know the topics you would love to hear in the future. Now strike, while the myth rolls high.